Tanshi Kiwa. Hello, how are you all? Welcome to Homelands, originally broadcast on CFCR Community Radio 90.5 FM in Saskatoon, Homelands of the Métis and Treaty 6 Territory, CFCR.ca. This is your favorite auntie, Andrea Letting Dishney. My name is Andrea Letting. Call me Auntie Andy if you like, and I'll be your host over this next half hour. I am part settler, part relative, and 100% ally and relation to everyone. I'm just me, not a card-carrying member of any Indigenous nation, but I am loved, adopted, related to, and accepted by many, rejected by a few. Haters gonna hate, relators gonna relate. I'm blessed to have Indigenous relations in my family, and secretly I may love them a little bit more than the rest, only because they are the first peoples of this land who welcome all the guests. But I'm also of Irish ancestry with some Scandinavian, along with a little bit of mystery, and that's the way I was raised, strongly anti-colonial and justice-oriented with a big related heart for all. I most empathize with my Batoche Métis friends and family in that history and culture growing up, and as an adult have continued to try and live that Mio Pimitswin, that beautiful good life. So from the fringes of the sash, I situate myself as a relative and an ally, and welcome you, my listeners, as brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews, cousins in the homelands. So let's welcome our relative tonight. Our guest is Denny Cho Thompson. Now, Denny Cho Thompson is a Denny director, actor, and playwright, and working in Treaty 6 and Métis territory. He has been an assistant professor in the Department of Drama at the U of S since January 2020, where he oversees the Wet'suwet'en Theatre Program, one of the only Indigenous theatre programs housed in a Canadian university. So welcome, Denny Cho.
Welcome, thank you.
Yes, I'm very glad to have you here tonight. So tell us a bit about your new position at the U of S. The last time I saw you was in Toronto, so.
Yeah, that's a few years back too, isn't it? So I got very lucky to replace Carol Greyeyes as coordinator of the Wet'suwet'en Theatre Program. It's a very exciting program in that it's one of the only, as you said, Indigenous theatre programs in a university, which I think is a really great opportunity. It's currently just a certificate program, but there's grand ambitions and collaborations in the future that it's probably too early to talk about, but I'm really excited about. And it's such a gift for me. The two university programs I've attended had a limited number of Indigenous graduates, but in my one class today, I had more Indigenous students in my class than have graduated both of my programs. So I'm really proud to be here. Working directly with Indigenous students. It's really what a pleasure, and I'm very excited to continue this work.
Awesome. So tell me a bit about your own artistic practice. You get some time to do some writing in there because you had a play called The Girl That Was Raised by Wolverine back in 2016, and
yeah, for sure,
acting as well. So yeah,
I would say my primary practice is as an actor for sure. I've even managed to do some work during this pandemic. I got called out to Vancouver to fill in a role in a bit of an emergency, and did so. All on film. We didn't obviously have huge audiences or anything, but I've been acting the better part of my life, and I try and maintain a professional practice even with my academic responsibilities. And I really find teaching acting and teaching theater really reinvigorates my own artistic desires regularly. So when I get the chance, I jump at every project I can fit into my schedule, to the chagrin of my dog and wife, who often suffer my absences. But that's a bit of a joke. But we make do, and I love acting. Do a little bit of writing, do some directing, but just always happy to be on stage.
That's awesome. So, tell us a bit about upcoming conference.
Yeah, so on my arrival here in the Department of Drama, I was approached by our department head, Moira Day. She suggested, as part of the 75th year of the department celebrations, which is actually the oldest drama department in a university in the Commonwealth, which is a pretty exciting little fact. So it's quite an old department, and so as part of the 75th celebrations, to have some sort of Indigenous gathering that kind of acknowledges the new direction that a lot of universities are trying to take with indigenization and decolonization, and little programs like this that are getting started and trying to make their way and all of that. And so I said, sure, I'm eager. I'm young. I'm new. I'm supposed to do this kind of thing, and so we got behind it, and we started organizing a conference that comes up in a couple of weeks. And we were graciously gifted the name of the conference by Maria Campbell, who is also our keynote. And I'm going to take a crack at it. My Korean Michif pronunciation is still a work in progress, but I'm gonna do it for you now. It's Pekiokage Ekwa Achimostawawin. No, Achimostawina. So it's come and gather and tell stories or visit or something along those lines, but with a little bit of an uplifted meaning. So we're really excited to gather in this time that we can't gather. I think is really the intention, is to come together and hold the circle, because as you know, we get many opportunities to gather across the country in the theater community, and we don't have those opportunities right now. So a little time together talking about theater, that's all we could really ask for.
That's awesome. And I'm so excited to hear Maria is going to be the keynote. She's amazing. And of course she's been a playwright for a long time. And I recognized one of the words, the root of Chimuin, right, is telling stories. So exciting, very exciting. So what are you looking forward to most in that?
Well, other than being done, because I'm so busy, Maria's promised up a really, really exciting keynote. We had a lot of discussions leading up to her agreeing. And she's going to talk about theater before we were in theaters, before we were allowed on stages. So I think it's a really sort of under recognized and under studied and under talked about sort of period of Indigenous theater in Canada. So I'm sure she's going to tell some really beautiful stories about things that none of us ever, except for those that were there, none of us really know about or talk about. And so I'm really excited for that. And I'm also, like I say, I'm excited to gather. There's lots of friends, colleagues, kin that I've been thinking about, that I've been worrying about, that I miss, that I would love to see. And the emails are pouring in and the registrations are pouring in, and I'm going, oh great, I get to see my extended family during this at-home life I'm living.
So it's primarily online then, or like a Zoom platform, or how?
Yeah, so we'll be online in sort of web video meetings, much like this one. And we're doing it in a relaxed format. Other than one of the Saturdays, there's no more than one event a day. So over I believe 10 or 11 days, there's 7 events or 8 events like that. So it's really, really relaxed. Some of it is social, some of it is seeing art, some of it is panels. So really just a mixed bag with really low stakes. And we've also, for that reason, made it absolutely free. So everyone's welcome to join us. We don't want it to be exclusive in any way. We just want to make sure that there's a place for people to come and listen or engage in whatever way they feel capable during the pandemic.
Fantastic. So where do you go? Probably the U of S drama department website, or?
Yeah, we've got a page on the drama website. It'll links to an Eventbrite page, and you just sign up, throw in your email, and we'll send a link out to you a couple hours before the event. And there are more and more details emerging on those pages as we confirm speakers and things like that. So it may seem stark now, but it's because we're writing copy or confirming names or things like that and putting it all up there. But I think at least the subjects of all the panels are up there, and soon some of the names of people who we're hoping to have there, who have confirmed at that point, I guess.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we're still a ways out. I mean,
yeah. It's a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But March 31st, I think, is when it starts.
Yeah, March 31st to April 8th.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, a nice way to celebrate spring, and it's just beautiful out there too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I was thinking about it. It was earlier this year in a different conversation, an unrelated conversation with Maria. And really thinking of spring and rebirth and coming out of this moment that we've been in for so long, for the better part of a year or two, a year and a bit now. And so I'm really excited about the timing of this, to kind of take a minute to breathe and to see the future coming at us, and also to use the pause that the pandemic has created to have a deep reflection on what we do as practitioners and scholars, and go, okay, do we have an opportunity here to change our thinking or practices a little bit while we're not chasing deadlines as we usually are?
Exactly. Take a breath of fresh spring air and breathe it all in and
Mhm.
see what comes out. So tell us a bit about maybe some thoughts around, you've kind of touched on it just in your last comment, but Indigenous storytelling and the importance of that long history, thousands of years old, and brought into contemporary practice. So some comments around that.
Hmm. Yeah. So I think specifically to a Facebook post that Kevin Loring shared. Kevin Loring, who's the artistic director of the National Arts Center Indigenous Theatre, the first named to that position, recent development to that department. Um, and it was in regards to a lack of funding that had been received by the department, sort of the perception of what was to be funded versus what the reality of the funding was. And a crux of that sort of public letter that he put out was our stories are medicine, right? And I really think about the stories we tell and have told in a contemporary setting, and it really is often about healing. And it doesn't have to be the stories themselves. It's about the coming together. It's about the sharing of knowledge. It's about holding each other up. And it is sometimes looking at some of those darker parts of the last 500 years and confronting them. And sometimes that's very painful, but working through the pain is great. But I'm also seeing a shift in that, right? There was sort of the residential school play era, right, where there's a lot of grief in the plays, and rightfully so. I love a lot of those plays. But now you're seeing artists like Kim Harvey, who's done Kamloopa recently, which is just in a lot of ways a love letter to matriarchs or future matriarchs, or Indigenous women, or the future of Indigenous women. And I feel like there's a lot of work moving in that direction of telling the stories of who we are now or who we want to be in the future. And I'm really curious about like Indigenous futurism as a place for story to live, because we can speak into existence futures that are better for us, or healthier for us, or excite us, as opposed to reliving some of the more traumatic parts of our life. Not to ignore those things, but I feel like, much like the spring, there's a shift in the stories that we're telling in the theater.
That's really beautiful. I agree with you too. Yeah, it's kind of moving out of the sort of the trauma tales and into some of the celebrations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Completely, yeah.
Um, Tell me more about your writing. Where's that at these days? I know you primarily see yourself as an actor, and then you're an instructor, but
I mean, as a creative, my writing is certainly limited these days. The Girl Who Was Raised by Wolverine got put down around the time you saw it, not for want of working on it, but for sort of life direction. But there is a strong desire to pick up that piece for sure. I think it needs a finishing draft. And then long term, I'm trying to tie my creative work into my academic work in some way. And so right now, my research kind of is around Indigenous acting technique and pedagogy and things like that related to theater training. So I'm trying to work out that piece, because the next piece I want to use the frameworks I've been thinking about there to develop a devised theater piece, right? So I'm looking at frameworks for the actor, and then I'm trying to transpose those into a devised piece. The devised piece being a story of my late grandfather, because I've been gifted this archive of his that has been culled and edited and censored over the last couple generations. And so I'm really curious about sort of expanding my knowledge about what's in there and why it's there and what's missing as a story. I think it's really interesting. And so I'm hoping to use that as content for a piece that uses the technique or methodology that I've developed to create something new. But of course, now that I live in the university, everything takes 4 or 5 years instead of 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, yeah, it does have a way of taking over one's life.
Yeah. There's a few things going on there.
Yeah. um, so that sounds like a beautiful project. I was just thinking about my own grandfather. I was working on a history with him, but he passed on. He was trying to make 100 and he made 98 and a half. So, but yeah, it's powerful bringing forward our ancestors' stories. Hey, and so you have lived in Vancouver and Edmonton, and I don't know where else, but can you kind of talk about the different theater scenes and things that you've noticed as you've moved?
Yeah, I mean, I've been taken to Toronto to do several things, like with City Gachakpi and Sedance and all of that thing, right? And probably some other conferences and things like that. But most of my artistic career happened in Vancouver, and so I was really lucky to early in my professional career come in contact with Margot Kane and get involved with Full Circle on Talking Stick Festival, and the very notion of holding a circle that this conference is based on is really based on the work Margot has done for so long. Because while she's a brilliant artist, she has prioritized making space for Indigenous artists to come together. And so I did that for a long time, and I find Vancouver to be a very exciting and fertile artistic space. I also find it, much like Toronto, to be financially suffocating, which is, I'm at a point where some years ago I said, you know what, I'm not willing to make under $30,000 as an artist in the one of the most expensive places in the country to live. That's not going to work for me anymore. So I moved on. But there, it really felt sometimes cliquey, but community. Like we really had a strong community that came together often, both the Indigenous theater scene and the non-Indigenous. Edmonton, I didn't have the opportunity to get super deep in there. I did my master's there, but things moved very quickly. I think there's some really exciting Indigenous artists in Edmonton, but it's it's the home of the second largest fringe festival in the world, right? So there's definitely a certain color to a lot of the work that happens there that is really kind of associated to that fringe world. I find that's not a negative comment. It's something to recognize that there's a particular kind of work that flourishes there. I was really excited to see the Citadel, their regional theater, take a couple of leaps. They programmed Red Patch, which is a show I got to be involved in the development of and the premiere of, about Indigenous soldiers in World War One. Sorry, Race and Sean, the playwrights. I have forgotten that show. It's been too long. But so there's things happening there. There's some really exciting artists, but I didn't get to dive in that much. And now here in Saskatoon, I moved here and promptly was met by a pandemic. But I've been really lucky to have made some really good artistic contacts in Saskatoon before I moved here. People like Jen Bishop over at Gordon Tatusis and a couple of other colleagues that I really admire their work. And we're talking big plans for the future that are collaborations between the university and the Department of Drama specifically and their programming. And then sort of there's this national entity that I think is its own culture that is different from all of the regional or locals, because there's a pool of people that are the best of the best professionals that get flown back and forth across the country all the time, because it's very popular to include Indigenous people right now, and everyone needs someone, and so there's sort of a casting crisis sometimes, right? People are looking around, digging under under every rock and every nook and cranny, looking for Indigenous actors, which I have critique of and also think is really wonderful. And Toronto's theater scene is like Toronto. It's fast, busy, intense, competitive. Again, none of those things critiques, but it's the wrong speed for me. I want to slow down and make work. I don't want to. I don't want to go.
Great kind of overview of the various scenes um, some of which I've experienced and some of which I just know about, through other people. But yeah, those are some great comments and observations.
Mhm.
What are you loving about being in Saskatoon?
There's a number of things. One is it's just big enough to be city-like and just small enough to be town-like. It's really fantastic. There's a flourishing food scene, even mid-pandemic. Some of the best restaurants I think in the western part of the country are here, and they're doing well enough to continue to push what they're doing for food. I'm really lucky that Scott Dix over at Odla is a longtime friend of mine. I used to work with him in Calgary and then in Vancouver. So he's the chef at Odla, and we love visiting them. There's when we're allowed, there's lots and lots of art going on. And I'm really happy to be able to drive across town in 10 minutes instead of an hour and a half to get anywhere, no matter what you do, even if it's like 5 blocks. So that's great. I like being around, and there's a certain connection to food here, like local food, that I think is really unique, right? Like even other prairie cities don't really touch into that sort of like farm direct food scene, and I think it's so wonderful to like go on your Sunday drive and hit the creamery and then hit the butcher and then hit the the farmer's market, and you've got all this like really direct food. It's really fantastic, really inspiring for me.
You name a city after a berry and look what happens.
Right?
That's awesome. So we still have a couple of minutes left. So what else would you like to tell us?
What else would I like to tell you? See more theater. I'd like to preview the fact that we, parallel to this conference, not the same thing, but Gordon Winter, a play by Ken Williams, is happening at the Drama Department. I'm directing. And it's a curious production in that it is online, which has been a really interesting artistic challenge. But I think we've met it in a really interesting way. I have a team of student designers and student actors that are really truly going above and beyond and applying their since birth knowledge of technology to really bring this thing to life. And it's a play that premiered here about a decade ago. And this is the next production, from what I understand. And so it's a little bit controversial. It deals with race in media. Who knew that would be so appropriate at the moment? But it's a really fantastic play, and the last role that Gordon Tootoosis did on stage. So really great moment to look back and arrive in Saskatoon thinking really about local theater life through art.
That's awesome. I didn't know that was going on. And I mean, yeah, that was the last role Gordon Tootoosis was in. And then of course, Ken has gone on to Edmonton.
Yeah, Ken and I work together at U of A. Yeah. And so now we call each other to do classes for each other now that we're at neighboring institutions.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know Ken really well. I'm sure he'll be a guest at some point. Yeah. So
I booked him this month. He's mine this month.
Okay. I'll wait
I've got him doing 3 or 4 things.
He's always busy. That's great. Tell us a bit more about the play, when it runs, and how people can see it.
Yes, of course. So it runs that same week. I just have to verify that.
Yeah, you've got probably so many dates going on right now.
I don't know up from down right now, to be completely honest. Yeah, so it'll run, the conference runs the 31st, and the show runs the 31st, the 1st, the 2nd, and the 3rd. There are 2 productions on the Saturday the 3rd, a matinee and an evening show. And there's a talkback on the 1st, hosted as part of the conference. Ken is confirmed to be there. I will be there. Chris Krug Iron, who is playing Gordon Winter in the show, has been invited. And then we're looking for a 4th, and we're going to do a little reaction to the production where I'm sure Ken will tell me what he thinks of my really strange internet direction, and then a little bit of audience engagement. So that's really exciting.
That sounds delightful. And that would, and you'd be able to access that through the Wichita conference?
Yeah. Through the conference we're running, there's a talk back there. Also, if you happen to be at the show that day, we'll be sending the link out as you watch it too, right? So April 1st, talk back.
And the whole thing, it's not before a live audience. It's all on Zoom kind of thing, hey?
It'll be streamed out to a platform similar to YouTube, probably Vimeo or something like that. So you'll get a link, click and watch. We're working out the details of how that works with the technology that we have available to us. But it won't be like a video call like this. It'll be on a stream service of some sort.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah, I watched the symphony for the first time on St. Patrick's Day. Well, St. Patrick's Day weekend, and it was on YouTube, streamed live, and that was very cool, very different. Yeah.
Yeah, there's as much as anything we're learning what the process is as much as learning what the production is, right? Which is a rare treat in the theater. Usually there's kind of like an expectation of what you do. You know, you do this and then this and then this. But then we did a bunch of stuff and then we went away and said, well, I think we've done this backwards, even though we thought we were doing it in the right order. And so we had to kind of rewind and shift the schedule. It's been a really interesting and exciting learning process for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It would be a learning process. Just maybe some closing thoughts on how the pandemic has kind of touched on theater, because that's kind of what we're talking about a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as you are aware, and I'm sure most of the theater community is aware, it's been an opportunity for a lot of companies to start to reflect on what they're doing. And I have faith that some of those companies are going to reorganize themselves to be more inclusive or more thoughtful companies. I'm sure some of them won't be able to do that because they've tried before, and you know the inertia of the system might not allow them to yet. But I'm really curious about what are we doing in this time. You know, I know several artists that are just plugging away and making more work and waiting for it to be over. I know people that are completely changing the mediums and techniques that they use and learning whole new ways of working. And I know people that have taken a break full on and are trying to distance themselves from theater for a moment. And so I'm really curious, you know, the people that are shifting or adapting, what that means for the future. And I don't think we'll know for 5 years. I really don't. I think we're here in it, and we'll have to learn from it afterwards. But I'm really excited to figure out what the learning is.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us this evening. So Kishi Marcy to our relative tonight, Denny Cho Thompson from the U of S, Miwag Maganak, all my relations. And believe me, we are all related. So act like you've got relations. This is Auntie Andy signing out from Homelands, originally produced on CFCR Community Radio, 90.5 FM in Saskatoon, Homelands of the Métis and Treaty 6 Territory, CFCR.ca. You can find excellent programming on Indian and Cowboy podcasting. Follow us on Twitter at Métis Homelands or email us at métishomelands@gmail.com. This episode will also be viewable on our YouTube channel Homelands, so subscribe today. Marcy, thank you for listening. And Akoshi Kawapa Matino Mina. That's all. We'll see you later.